Good evening, it's 7:30 p.m. We have a quorum here, and I'm going to call to order our Thursday's February 12th, 2026 meeting of the New Rochelle Public Library Board of Trustees. And we have an attendance sheet that went around, and we have full attendance of the board. So we will start with the pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There's a meeting for executive session this evening, and everyone received the minutes in the board packet. Some of you may have printed it out. So I'm going to make a motion to adopt the minutes, and I'm sorry, I meant the meeting agenda. Everyone received the meeting agenda in the board packet, and some may have printed it out. So I'm making a motion to adopt the meeting agenda as presented prior to today's meeting that's in the board minutes. May I get a second, please?
A second.
Seconded by Corey Gallery. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. I will pass it on to our secretary, Rhiannon Gavin, for review of the minutes.
Yep, we have two sets of minutes, and so I will start with the motion to accept the meeting minutes of the January 8th board meeting, which shared ahead of time with the full board, and so may I have a second?
Seconded by Vera. Any questions or discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
And then the second set of minutes from the emergency board meeting on February 3rd, and shared ahead of time with the full board, and so I will make a motion to accept the February 3rd emergency board meeting minutes as presented.
Do we have a second?
Awesome.
All right, Nancy. Any questions or discussion? All right, we'll call for a vote. All in favor? Oh, you had a question, sorry. Hello.
Just to change the AM to PM, that was the whole thing.
Yeah, I changed that. Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right, sorry, we'll call for a vote now. All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimously. Now we'll turn it over to regular business and our report from our Westchester Library System Representative, David Moon.
Thanks, good evening. A few updates. So the Westchester County 2026 budget included an 8% funding reduction, which was approximately $180,000 for WLS. We had anticipated and drafted a 5% budget reduction. So WLS will look for efficiencies and various cost savings to address the 3% gap, which is about $40,500, not a huge amount, but we still have to account for it. The New York State Governor's 2026 executive budget was released on Tuesday, January 20th, and funding proposals for libraries include a 6.44% reduction in library operating aid and a 23% reduction in public library construction aid, which is about $104.7 million for the library operating aid, a proposed reduction of about $1.625 million. $34 million in public library construction aid, which was a proposed reduction of $10 million. In 2025, the allocation is $44 million. And the New York Libraries Association Library Advocacy Day was on Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026 in Albany, New York. WLS coordinated people to go to Albany, including our executive director, Terry, to advocate on behalf of libraries in New York State and WLS. In terms of specific software updates, so in terms of Hoopla, you guys are probably very familiar with that. So the new system-wide maximum checkout threshold for Hoopla is now going to be 3 downloads per month. Patrons are currently allowed 5 downloads per month on a monthly basis. About 64% of the Hoopla patrons use between 1 and 3 downloads per month. That was found to be sort of the sweet spot in terms of balancing cost and accessibility. Individual libraries are able to provide additional checkouts beyond the system-wide threshold if they desire. And library patrons are also able to utilize Hoopla bonus borrow options for access for free titles provided throughout the year. In terms of Canopy, the year period from November 1st, 2024 to October 31st, 2025, 92% of Canopy patrons used between 0 to 4 tickets a month, so that was thought to also be the sweet spot in terms of what made fiscal sense. WLS is working with Canopy to offer interested member libraries with the option of also providing additional tickets just like the food club for the library patrons. In terms of 2025 annual reports, NRPL has always been very diligent about this. The deadline for submission is March 4th, 2026, and WLS will submit all member library annual reports, as always, to the Division of Library Development by April 1st, 2026. In terms of trustee education opportunities that are upcoming, there's one on Thursday, April 16th on hiring and evaluating library directors, Wednesday, June 17th, laws and regulations, and Thursday, October 29th, duties and responsibilities of key officer roles. And that's from 5 to 6:30 p.m. And you can log in virtually.
Thank you, David. Any questions? David? Okay. Thank you. Okay, we are moving on to the president's report. This might be a little bit longer than what's typical. I just wanted to note that this will, my colleague Corey will go more in depth on what's been happening to ensure that we are in compliance with safety regulations and rules in our basement for library staff and for anyone working in the basement. One of the things that we're doing is cleanup, and as part of that, we are working with the Friends of NRPL Public Library, and as they do an assessment of their books, they have a wonderful collection of books for a special sale that they're doing for $1 per bag. So we encourage everyone in the community to come and visit and bring a large shopping bag and load up on books that you see that you miss from your childhood, that you wish your kids would read, that you would like to share with a neighbor for $1. So I wanted to make sure that everyone puts that down and remembers to do it. And I think that sale is going on at least until the end of this month, probably a little bit longer. Also, as many of you know, this month is the 100th anniversary of Black History Month. And in honor of that, I wanted to talk a little bit about the history of Black poet laureates. Before I do, I just want to note that there was a first poetry reading of the Library of Congress, and poet laureates are chosen by the Library of Congress. The first poetry reading at the Library of Congress took place in 1897, November 8th, and that was a week after the library was relocated to the U.S. Capitol in the current Library of Congress building before it was expanded. And that was that reading was given by the poet that we know to be Paul Laurence Dunbar. He was 25 at the time, and the poem that he read was called "The Caged Bird Sings." And I'm sure you can recognize that title, possibly not necessarily from that poem, but from Maya Angelou's poem and book herself. So just with regard to the poet laureates, I think what's important to note is that there have been 55 poet laureates who've been appointed and served from the time that the program started in 1937 until today. They were initially consultants in poetry, and then the title was renamed to Poet Laureate Consultant in Poetry in 1985-86. Of those 55 poet laureates, only 5 were Black. The first poet laureate was Robert Hayden in 1976. Gwendolyn Brooks was the 29th poet laureate, and the final poet to serve as a consultant in poetry. She served from 1985 to 1986. Rita Dove was the first female and the youngest appointed after the title was changed to Poet Laureate, and she was the first Black Poet Laureate under the new title, and that was from 1993 to 1995. And Rita Dove was named a special consultant in poetry for the bicentennial of the Library of Congress along with 2 other poets in 1999. Natasha Trethewey was appointed the 19th Poet Laureate Consultant in Poetry. And in her first term, she's actually known because as part of her term, she was one of the first people to do this. She held office hours, and during those office hours, she met with the general public in the library's poetry room, and that goes back to the days when Robert Hayden had actually done that. Tracy Smith was the most recent poet laureate. She won the Pulitzer Prize in 2012 for her book of poetry, Life on Mars, and she served as the 22nd poet laureate from 2017 to 2019, and during her term, she spearheaded American Conversations, celebrating poetry in rural communities within the Library of Congress. So I think it's just important to remember what our libraries, the role that our libraries play locally, statewide, and also federally. The Library of Congress holds so much rich history, and those poets who are able to share experiences of Black Americans through their work, through their poetry, and through their service is something to be noted. And so to conclude and wrap this up, I will leave you with a few words from Amanda Gorman, who is the first National Youth Poet Laureate, and this is from her poem, The Hill and Climb. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light, if only we are brave enough to see it, if only we are brave enough to be it. Thank you. And I will now pass it on to our director.
So I'm happy to share some good news. We received a $2,000 grant from plantingamerica.org for a project called Native Plant Pollinator Garden at the New Rochelle Public Library. This was done in partnership with Healthy Arts New Rochelle and our library team. So the project will install 180 plants along with plant labels and garden signage at the Children's Garden. We're looking at having a pollinator celebration during National Pollinator Week, which is June 15th through 21st. We are looking at including some hands-on planting activities such as native seed sowing, garden planting, and the planting itself, leading up to the big community pollinator event. So we're going to be coordinating next steps with our community partner, but we're very excited that we have yet another way in which we can continue to beautify our children's garden. We also received our final award amount for the New York State Public Library Construction Grant that we applied for in the 24 to 25 cycle. So that's how long it takes for us to receive the funding, but we are grateful. In spite of the delays, we are very, very grateful. So the total is $180,544, and that was for the theater, the roof of the theater and entrance, and for necessary renovations to sustain our air conditioning. This is especially important now in the cool season, that we complete this in advance of the next, now that we're in the cold season, as we approach the cooling season, it'll be important for us to improve the efficiency of our chillers. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Eugenia. We'll move on to the treasurer's report. With respect to this item, we must note that the officer of treasurer is currently vacant, so there is no report to review, and the board is moving forward to appoint a new treasurer. Per our bylaws, the treasurer is a part-time employee who serves at the pleasure of the board, as well as a sworn officer of the corporation. This is an important position, as we've said before, and the treasurer will be playing a key role in numerous upcoming critical initiatives for the board. So just a point of order for that. And now it is time to move on to our board committee reports, and we'll start with the Budget and Finance Committee, Rhiannon.
Yes, I apologize for the lengthy report, but the budget. So I apologize for the lengthy report, but the Budget and Finance Committee has been a little busy. So we met on, since our last board meeting, we met on January 28th, we met on February 4th, and we met on February 11th. And just to continue on the subject of the treasurer, the ad hoc treasurer search committee has reopened their search for a treasurer. We went back to two strong candidates from our last round of interviews that we had our first interview with, and scheduled an in-person meeting with one of the strong candidates, Michael Kassinger, which was a fantastic follow-up meeting. The second candidate from the previous round declined the invitation to follow-up meeting. The treasurer search committee was very impressed with Michael's qualifications and has proposed moving forward with the hiring of Michael. And just to know that the committee agreed that updating and finalizing the library's fiscal policy should be a key priority for this new treasurer. So more on that at the next meeting. I'm going to move on to the subject of the transition to become fiscally independent from the school district, which the committee has been working on. We are ready to initiate the next steps needed to financially separate from the school district. The school district is amenable to the transition, and so we are in negotiations on how to most efficiently move forward to take full custody of the library's funds by the beginning of the next fiscal year, which is July 1st. There was a formal letter shared with the full board ahead of this meeting, a letter to the board president of the school board that initiates that separation process and kicks off negotiations and the details of how this separation will move forward. And so I have a resolution related to this letter that I'm going to read and then ask for a motion from the board to approve. So the resolution goes as follows. Whereas the board has created and will fill the role of treasurer, and whereas a treasurer is a requirement of a library electing to demand custody of its funds per Education Law 259, and whereas the district is finalizing an audit that addresses the separate tax levy monies and fiscal practices of the district and the library, and whereas the library board is ready to engage meaningfully with the school district on a transition to the library being the custodian and administrator of its funds, be it resolved that the library president shall send the district a letter, the library board president shall send the district a letter to announce the intent of the library to effect such transition and the desire to engage in solid communications and joint planning to ensure such transition is as smooth and efficient as possible. So that is the resolution. I will make a motion for the board to adopt this resolution.
Okay. The motion is made for the board to adopt the resolution for the library to move forward with the transition from the school board. May I get a second? Seconded by Vera Salter. Open the floor to any questions or discussion. All right. Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Right, moving on to the 2026-2027 fiscal year budget. The Budget and Finance Committee has received the proposed budget from the library director. The proposed increase is 3.75%. As per usual, the personnel costs make up the lion's share of this budget, and there are a few line items in the budget that saw necessary increases. Such as, I'll give a couple examples. One is the programming line that saw a significant increase this year as the library is moving to self-fund all core programming. There were increases in the legal audit insurance budget line to adequately account for the increased legal fees that we're incurring and the new annual audit expense. Another budget line that's increasing is the payroll ADP services as we transitioned to using those services at the library. The Budget Finance Committee had time to review the budget and have a conversation about it. And we have, because this budget increase, proposed budget increase is 3.75%, which is above the tax cap. There is another resolution that I would like to read now, a resolution to override the tax cap, and it goes as follows. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the New Rochelle Public Library hereby amends its proceedings and ratifies the following. Whereas the adoption of this 2026-2027 budget for the New Rochelle Public Library requires a tax levy increase that exceeds the tax cap imposed by state law as outlined in General Municipal Law Section 3C adopted in 2011. And whereas General Municipal Law Section 3C expressly permits the library board to override the tax levy limit by a resolution approved by a vote of 60% of qualified board members. Therefore, I make a motion of the Board of Trustees of the New Rochelle Public Library to approve to exceed the tax levy limit for 2026-2027 by at least the 2% of the board trustees, okay, as required by state law. The New York State tax cap for 2026 is 2%. So I will make a motion for the board to approve this resolution about the tax cap override.
And we have a motion. Do we have a second? Seconded by Tatiana. And I'll open the floor for questions and discussion. Just a quick question. I think that there was an error in the, is it 2%, 3.75? Just to require, I'm sorry.
The budget increase?
The tax cap is 2%.
2%.
Okay. Any other question? Okay, then I will call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
All right. The last thing I want to talk about is potential infrastructure bond that the board is considering. The Budget Finance Committee met with the school district financial advisors who presented their calculations of the tax implications of the two scenarios for the potential infrastructure bond that the board and the committee is considering. The committee discussed the annual monthly additional tax burden to the average taxpayer for each bonding scenario. And one thing to note is that the advisors' calculations were based on the assumption of utilizing a 15-year bond, and the committee, as a follow-up, requested to see implications of other financing options, such as 30-year bonds, for instance. The library director also asked of the financial advisor, will ask the financial advisors to incorporate the library's two existing bonds into the calculations for the tax impact of a potential new bond to understand potential savings. At the last committee meeting on February 11th, yesterday, the committee passed a motion to move forward with the second bonding scenario, which was the bond for $55 million and change that focuses on the needed infrastructure updates and replacements, and also in necessary full building renovation. And so moving forward, we are going to focus our the impact calculations on this bonding scenario only. And that motion was passed unanimously by the Budget and Finance Committee. Next meeting dates will be, there will be a full board retreat on February 24th from 5:30 to 8, in which we will receive the final audit report, including the internal audit report, the planning stages and conversation with the school district. And so at the board retreat that the full board will be having on February 24th, that's the date where we're making a decision whether or not to move forward.
Thank you so much.
Well, to get an agreement, then we'll have a board meeting to make a final decision moving forward.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, all right.
I know the answer, but I just want to tell the public. What's the timing of our planned renovation? How long is that going to take?
Right, so for this scenario number 2 that we now selected to move forward with, the timing, and correct me if I'm wrong, there were different timelines for different scenarios, but I believe it was 8 years for the $55 million. So a phased approach, because if we're doing a full overhaul of the infrastructure and a full building renovation, while maintaining the day-to-day services that the library provides, it has to be a phased approach, because we can only tackle one project at a time, make sure that the rest of the library is unaffected. So it's a longer lead time, but the overall timeline is 8 years, with potential for time savings.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rhiannon. All right, moving on, buildings and grounds.
I'll have a resolution after I give an update. Good evening. So just to give a brief update on our recent meeting, which is February 6th, the committee reviewed and approved plans to move forward with the library basement cleanup project, which included the selection of Clancy as the project manager, pending final board approval for today, per the resolution. This work will begin on February 15th, once the Friends organization has fully vacated the space. The goal is to ensure the basement is cleared safely, responsibly, in compliance with operational and safety requirements. The committee also discussed insurance, access, and space use arrangements and agreements with the Friends organization, including the need for formal agreements and clear access protocols going forward. What we identified, and we mentioned this a few times in previous board meetings, is there's a fire safety hazard in the basement that's existed for probably maybe 2 decades. So we were made aware of this in December, and we took action, and now we're ready to have the entire books area, or Friends books, moved out, reserved, moved out this weekend, February 15th and 16th. In addition to that, which is our biggest project from Buildings and Grounds, immediate, reviewed several facility planning and capital initiatives, including the progress of the Children's Library Gardens project, ongoing master facility planning, which is in direct partnership with the Finance and Budget Committee, early planning related to potential future bonds, continue to work and plan on the user experience with consultants, with additional updates coming in the spring. We did hire space consultant that will be engaged to just look at how we efficiently using the space. Finally, the committee discussed a number of operational and governance matters, including the ongoing search for a new treasurer. Committee will continue to advance these items and return to the full board with recommendations and updates as work continues to progress. It's a fluid process, obviously, because the building, we haven't taken action on this building for at least, I'd say, 30 years. So this is long overdue. It's an 8-year project, which means even when we go to the public, we have to look at how we're going to make this building better. This was a direct request from the community when we did our strategic plan. And the option was, if everyone remembers, for those that will watch this recording, we were talking to a developer, and the community said we do not want to have the library partner with the developer. Therefore, at that time, the community said we are willing to pay to help the library come up to date on where they currently are. This is how we got to the bond conversation. This is why we're here talking about an 8-year plan, because the community wants to see the progress and wants to see the library improve, because we we've received all the reports. Reports are on the library's website on the condition of the library. We can't keep our heads stuck in the sand. We gotta move and we gotta do something. That being said, that is it from the building grounds report. I will read off the resolution related to the hiring of the project manager, Clancy, to start work this weekend on February 15th and February 16th. Unbasic, thank you. All right. So Building Grounds Committee resolution, resolution number BG 021-2026, dated February 12th, 2026. Resolution to authorize project manager for basement clearance and safety remediation. Whereas the Building and Grounds Committee of the New Rochelle Public Library has identified the condition of the library basement as requiring immediate remediation in order to address fire safety and code compliance concerns, excess storage, and accumulated materials creating hazardous conditions, and the need to prepare the space for safe and compliant future use. Whereas the committee has reviewed proposals and project scope associated with the coordinated removal, relocation, donation, and/or lawful usage of books, furniture, and related materials currently stored in the basement. Whereas the committee has determined that engagement of a qualified project manager is necessary to coordinate logistics of removal and transport, ensure compliance with insurance, liability, and safety requirements, oversee contractor performance and cost controls, and provide accountability and reporting to the Library Board of Trustees and the Executive Director. Now therefore be it resolved that the Building and Grounds Committee hereby recommends and authorizes the award of a project manager service for the NRPL basement clearance and safety remediation project to Clancy in an amount not to exceed $72,360, subject to ratification by the full Board of Trustees, verification of all required insurance, indemnification, and additional insured documentation, protecting New Rochelle Public Library, coordination with the Friends of the Library regarding removal of property and communication schedule and access limitations, and final approval and funding authorization by the New Rochelle Public Library Board of Trustees were required by policy. Be it further resolved that the committee directs library administration to proceed with all necessary steps to implement the project upon board approval, including execution of agreements, scheduling of removal activities, and confirmation of safety compliance. Adopted by the Building and Grounds Committee, New Rochelle Public Library, February 6, 2026. Corey Galloway, Chair.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve the hiring of Clancy. May I get a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Rhiannon. I'll open the floor to any questions or discussion. Okay, hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Corey. Moving on to the Community Relations Committee, Nancy, here.
The Community Relations Committee met on January 26th at 9 a.m. Nancy Weimer called the meeting to order at 6 a.m. We had a discussion of the need for a communication plan for the budget and bond. We go forward with the bond. But we would hold off on that plan until the details of the budget and bond proposals were available. And that this effort would be led by the chair of the finance committee. We also discussed the support the Community Relations Committee could give to support the space use plan and the contract with architects, both from Architects Associates. In other business, it was reported that there was a successful movie program held with the Jewish Community Center in Westchester, and it is an example of possible future community partnership. The meeting was adjourned at 9:38 a.m., and the next meeting will be held on February 23rd.
Any questions for Vera or Nancy? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to the personnel committee. Tatiana?
Hi, I have a I would like to make a motion to approve consent agenda for the personal resolutions number 2026-02-1 through 5, according to the recommended action for each item. Okay.
Great. There's a motion on the floor to pass 2026-02, 1 through 5 personnel resolution. Okay. So, personnel resolutions. May we get a second, please?
I'll second.
Seconded by Rhiannon. I will open for any questions for discussion. Okay, hearing none, call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
The personnel committee didn't meet in January. Our next meeting is on Tuesday, February 17th at 9 a.m.
Thank you, Tatiana. Moving on to the law policy committee.
Hi, good evening, everyone. The policy committee met on Monday, February the 2nd at 9 a.m. I'm going to go into our next meeting. Our next meeting is going to be Monday, March the 2nd at 9 a.m. And then after that date, we may be potentially shifting that time so that we have about a week in advance of our board meeting that the policy committee meets at least 1 week before our board meetings. As of now, the scheduling has worked out, but as we move past March, it'll become a little tighter. So we'll be meeting the same week as our board meetings. So I'll give you an update on that in the future at the next board meeting. We discussed several policies in this in our committee meeting, including some upcoming policies that we're working on, including the bulletin board and tabling, programming, vacation time, and we also worked on one that I would be bringing to you this evening that the committee approved to move forward, the notary services policy. I'll pause on that for one moment. And then we also discussed upcoming policies and discussed kind of like a breakdown and a timeline for those additional or new policies. Now circling back to the notary services policy, I just wanted to point out that this is some people don't view policy as being very exciting, but in this case, I just wanted to thank our director and also staff for demonstrating the needs of our community and really rising to the occasion. This notary services policy is going to allow our patrons and Rochellians to have more access to a really important service, which is notary services. Currently at the library, we have this. It's once a month, but empowering our library staff, our librarians and staff to become notaries and providing that service again free of charge to our community is going to be incredibly helpful. The policy itself, not boring, is going to just outline how people can utilize the notary services and also help the staff understand how they could move forward with becoming a notary. I'm very excited about this. Again, this is kind of like community action, like something where we're going to be able to see the results of the work that's been done from this committee, the board, definitely the staff, and our director to make a motion. I would also like to point out that this policy was shared with the board beforehand. I would like to make a motion that the Board of Trustees adopt the notary services policy that was distributed last week.
Thank you, Falon. So there's a motion on the floor to adopt the notary services policy. May I get a second, please?
I'll second.
Seconded by Corey. Opening the floor to any questions or discussion. Okay, hearing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. As does the policy.
Thank
Which is
you.
exciting.
So, and another thing to point out is that as all of our policies are listed on the NRPL website, and this is a great place for our patrons, for New Rochelians to take a look and see how, like in this specific case, what do I need to, or how can I use this, the service that's provided. So I urge everyone to take a look at our website and review those policies, which will help you, it's a roadmap to how you can utilize your public library even more. So I'd just like to thank you for that. And thanks. That's it. Oh, sorry, I did mention our next meeting is going to be March 2nd. Did I mention that? Okay, it's 9 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Turning it back over to Rhiannon for the approval of checks and warrants.
Yes, approval of checks and warrants. I'm making a motion to approve the consent agenda for checks and warrants for the fiscal year 2025-2026 warrants number 27, 28, 29, 30, and 31.
Okay, the motion is on the floor to pass the warrants 27, 28, 29, 30, and 31. Here. May I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Barrett. Any questions, discussion? All right, I will call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We do not have additional resolutions that are coming to the floor, and no old business. Is there any new business? Okay, then we'll move on to public comment. Okay. And then hearing none, I will call for an adjournment. So I will make a motion to adjourn the February 12th meeting of the Library Board of Trustees. May I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Falon. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. That concludes our meeting at 8:14 p.m. of the February 12th board meeting. Thank you, everybody.